Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and you join me here in the Commonwealth. We are at University Point, which I'll show you on the map if you've never been to this place before. So it's kind of right on the kind of east coast here. So that's South Boston High School, then the castle's over there. Jamaica Plain here, and the Atom Cats is just kind of across the bay sort of thing. So yeah, very interesting location. So for Wasteland Biographies today, as I mentioned in the synth video on Saturday, I wanted to talk about a young lady known as Jacqueline Spencer, and how she relates to this place, University Point, and how she relates to the Institute. So Jacqueline Spencer lived here at the settlement of University Point with her father Gerald, and her mother had died a few years before this all kind of happened. So this incident happened a couple of years ago per the game date, so that happened in 2285, and we're in 2287 or possibly even 2288 at this point. Yeah. Because this is my old save file that's got like over 5 days worth of gameplay in it. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about that. So Jacqueline was very technically minded like her mother, so she was really good with computers and engineering, and she even set up a network so that the inhabitants of this settlement could email each other. So she basically set up the network and the university mail relay so that the people could send emails. So we'll get back to these emails. So this is Gerald Spencer. So this is our father's terminal we're looking at first. So if we look at the logs, Josephine, so that was his wife and Jacqueline's mother. So Josephine, it's been 3 years since she died. Still think about you every single day. I wish you could see how much Jacqueline has grown. Last week was her 6th birthday, and I gave her your old toolbox like you had always planned. The next day I found that she had disassembled half of the stuff in the store. She looks so much like you now. I miss you so much. So this is when Jacqueline was 6, so she was 3 when her mother died, which is really sad. And then she actually did it. So you would be so proud, Jack, that's what she likes to go by now. Well, she found your old notes about the mail relay and begged me for weeks to take her into the flooded area when I went to hunt lurks so she could try and find the parts she needed, and she found what she was looking for. So she's got the mail relay thing working, so it means that they can basically email each other while in the settlement, which he thinks is maybe a little bit pointless considering they're all living under the same roof, but you know, he's quite proud that she's achieved this. And then the latest log is a bit more concerning. So he's basically using this diary to, you know, kind of write to his dead wife, which presumably is cathartic for him. But she found something in the ruins, some sort of data, and a man came to town and said he was from the Institute. He threatened the mayor, and the town is in an uproar. We don't know if this is real, but it seems dangerous, and people are actually accusing Jacqueline of being a synth, and people are kind of upset. So what happened essentially was that she found a reference to some data regarding power management. So I'm going to go back through and see if I can find Jacqueline's own terminal, which is up here somewhere, I think. Nope, but I think this is her room because there's all the broken equipment and various tools and things. So this was where she slept, it seems. There is a Tesla Science magazine here as well, right enough if you're collecting those. So here's Jack's terminal, or Jacqueline's terminal right here, which again gives a wee bit of insight. And she's even got the ability to make the drawings, which is quite impressive. So yeah, she's got a holotape there, which we'll take for later on our journal. Should be able to get a few more details about what she's found. Yeah, so she's managing to sneak past the Mirelurks, but she pulled a hard disk out of a large console in one of the lecture halls. Some of the data seems to be intact, so she's going to have a look around before she reformats it. Maybe there's something interesting there. And then score, so she's obviously quite happy. This is big. Managed to get part of the data off that hard disk, and it seems to be some research about reactor efficiency. Part of it was corrupt, but might be able to find the rest somewhere else. So she found this hard drive that belonged to Professor Stuart Campbell, who was doing research into nuclear reactor efficiency, and she discovered that that's what this was talking about. And if you have completed the Institute's questline, or if you know what happens in that, you learn of what they call Phase 3, and they're all very cagey and secretive about Phase 3 and what it is. But it's really not that big a deal. It's very weird how they're all like, oh, Phase 3, we can't tell you what Phase 3 is, but it's very important. It's an upgrade to their nuclear fusion reactor that's going to cover their power needs for the rest of time. And that's one of the big goals of Phase 3, so it's a big important project as far as the Institute is concerned. So you can imagine that this data that Jacqueline has potentially discovered here would be of great interest to the Institute, given, that's what they want, is to get a more efficient power supply for their entire institution. Maybe not, you know what I mean. But she obviously doesn't know that, but she put the word out. So as you can see here, that she went to one of the trade caravans that was passing through to see if anybody might be interested in the data, and he said it might be worth an awful lot to the right person. So they agreed to a split of the money if they can find a buyer. However, so one thing, and I'm pretty sure I did mention this very briefly when we were in the Institute on Saturday's video about the synths. The thing about the trade caravans is that they are all informants for the Institute, and we can see that there's a terminal in the SRB that states that basically all the trade caravans that you see popping up at different settlements, so Trashcan Carla and Doc Weathers and Cricket, they're all informants for the Institute. So obviously this trade caravan got word back to the Institute, hey, this girl has found something that could be really interesting to you. So that is the problem, and she obviously didn't know any of this and didn't know that the Institute would be interested. Nobody knows about the Institute. Nobody knows what their intentions are. And sometimes I'm not even convinced that the Institute know what their intentions are. But, it's something that happens. So then, Today is Terrible, I think, gives us a bit of an account. Let's see. So there was some council meeting and found out that she'd been in the flooded part of the building, and basically grounded her. And she tried to explain, and he listened, and then it got kind of weird and wouldn't really tell her what was going on until he'd sorted things out. So unfortunately what happened is, as we saw, the Institute sent somebody out to University Point to say, give us the data or else, essentially. And then the town ended up getting really upset about the whole situation, understandable, because everybody in the Commonwealth is scared of the Institute and their synths. So there was a lot of kind of arguments and discussions, and the mayor managed to calm things down a little bit, but eventually at another meeting, Gerald ended up coming to blows with somebody over the whole situation. And even, I think we can see that in our mail, really. Let's see. Yeah, so she got some nasty emails. So this is from her dad saying, I'm serious, no more scavenging till this thing with the council blows over. I know people are scared, but I think this guy the mayor talked to is just a con man. The Institute hasn't shown up in a long time. Why would they now? So they're trying to kind of calm everything down and get people to, kind of stop panicking and things, but he's like, you just need to stay in and not make things worse. And then P. Owens, which is the guy that her father ends up fighting with, and just because they haven't attacked anyone in years, that it's something that's all made up. But now the Institute is going to come and kill us all, and, well, pretty nasty things to say, especially to, somebody that's still quite young from an adult man. Obviously, people are scared, but even so, yeah, and then kind of accusing her of potentially working for the Institute. I think we can... Yeah, we can't actually get these, but, you can see just from the subject lines that people aren't happy about this whole situation, and it is very, distressing, because the Institute person mentioned her by name, so they knew who was kind of offering the, hey, I've got the, I've found this data, so they were kind of like, okay, well, now you need to give it to us, and then we can go back through here. Yep, this is the place. So this is Jacqueline, this is her skeleton right here, and we can confirm that. So this is the professor's terminal. So eventually we saw an email on her dad's terminal saying to get out, so the mayor was like, maybe I should leave the Commonwealth, leave town before this, becomes a problem. But before they could flee, the synths attacked, and basically killed everyone, so that's why there's skeletons all over the place. So Jacqueline kind of realised that she didn't actually have the data, there was just references to the data, so she decided that she was going to have to come and find the actual data, and she returned to the professor's office here to find it, but unfortunately it was too late, and the synths got her, and this is her her body here, unfortunately. Oh no, don't get... Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, Fallout 4 is having a bit of a thing. Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things about this, and about what this professor was actually doing, which we'll maybe cover at a later date. But yeah, so his latest notes on energy research. But yeah, he's just left a note for somebody that is obviously a rival, which is interesting. But she wanted to, find the actual data to hand over to the Institute to save everybody, but it was unfortunately too late. The Institute were not willing to play nice anymore. So there's a couple of things. This is her duffel bag, so she was obviously kind of prepared for having to escape, but she's also got a note there, so we're going to have a look at those. Just... At least it's under J, so it's not too far down. I really wish they'd bring back the separate notes tab. So we're going to have a listen to our holotape first.
Okay. First, I want to say I'm sorry, Dad. I knew I was onto something big, and thought I'd see what a traitor would pay if I found it. I had no idea that the Institute would be after any of this, and now the whole town is in trouble. I know you told me not to worry, but I just know that the town is going to vote to throw us out, or worse. I wasn't lying when I said I didn't have the data, despite what Mr. Owens and his cronies think. That's why I have to go back in. I know the key is in there, I just need to put the pieces together. It's something with that professor. If I can find it, maybe I can give the Institute what they want, and they'll just leave us alone.
Yeah, so clearly she knew what the situation was turning into, and she tried to fix it. But unfortunately that didn't go well for it. And then this note that's been left, which is our final words really. Oh God, the Institute is here. I can hear them fighting outside. Dad, I figured out where the data is, but I think I'm too late. I'm sorry. And that's it. So yeah, it's quite a sad story. I mean, obviously the kind of point of this really is that, this entire town was wiped out. for the sake of some data about, reactor efficiency. Like, it's not anything massively revolutionary or anything like that. And you can see, so even if you come here, there's mirelurks in the flooded bits, but there's also synth spottering about, and because it had been so long, I think the place reset and brought more synths back. But it's, this entire town was wiped off the map because the Institute believed that they could just come in and demand whatever they wanted and just kill everyone if they don't comply. So when Father / Sean is talking about how the Institute is the last best hope for humanity, they're going to solve all the problems of the Wasteland and everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows, but only if we're allowed to do it our way. Which may sound familiar because there's quite a few other people and organisations that think that they're the last best hope for humanity, but everybody has to do it their way or it's not going to work. So it's something, they say that they want to save the world and save humanity and all the rest of it, but actions do speak louder than words. And this entire settlement, this was a happy little settlement where people were generally functioning, they were working, they were trading, they were scavenging, and they were kind of living their lives until this all happened. And it's, they were all blaming Jacqueline about, that it was her fault for digging around on terminals and things, but it just doesn't really seem like the Institute actually care about the people that are living on the surface, because if they did, they would have approach this in a different way. They could have just actually paid for her to find the data. They could have discussed it with her and come to an agreement or something like that. They didn't need to just come in and kill everybody in order to sort this out, because from her notes, you can see that when she realised what the situation was, she was willing to go and find the data, hand it over, so that maybe the Institute would just leave everybody alone. But that's not what happened, because the Institute were just like, yep, nope, time's up, you're done, we don't care anymore. So it just doesn't really fit with what the Institute claim that they want. And there's an interesting saying, and I think it's applicable to a lot of things, both in stories and in the real world, is that when somebody shows you who they are, not when they tell you who they are, when they show you who they are, believe them. And the situation that happened here at University Point definitely proves that the Institute are not the good guys. The townspeople all blame Jacqueline for the situation, but how was she supposed to know that the caravans were spies for the Institute? How was she supposed to know that the Institute would want this data, that this was something that was relevant to their goals? She had no way of knowing that. Nobody knows, because the Institute hide away underground and send robots and fake people out to do their bidding, and just kind of expect that everyone's going to capitulate to them and do what they say, because they think that they're better than everybody else, and that they're the only ones capable of leading the world into a better future. And that's clearly not the case, because if they really wanted to, I mean, this is a post-apocalyptic world where millions and millions of people were wiped out in the space of a couple of hours. And if they really wanted to sort of save humanity, save the world, save America, then wiping out an entire town because they didn't do what you wanted quickly enough, it doesn't really kind of fit with that intention. So it's definitely something that I think is quite questionable. So yeah, Jacqueline's story here, it tells us two things. One is that the Institute aren't the good guys. If anybody really thinks that the Institute are the good guys, you need to kind of look into things a bit more, because this isn't the only place where this kind of thing has happened, where the Institute have just kind of sent a bunch of synths in to force people to do what they want. And it's not the first place where they've interfered on the surface either. So their intentions aren't really intended to benefit the Commonwealth. There's just not enough proof that that's what they want to do, given that they were pumping out super mutants as well for a long, long time. They were doing these experiments, and then we're just like, right, okay, instead of, they just got rid of them by sending them to the surface. And they go and just kill a bunch of people. It's not really that helpful, and it's not like they don't know what's happening, because they've got their crow cameras all over the place to see what's actually happening on the surface to the people, to the ghouls, to the super mutants and all the rest of it. So big kind of question mark there about the Institute's true intentions. In this phase 3 that they think, they go on about how big a deal phase 3 is, and they're all secretive about it, and just like, yeah, we can't really tell you the details, but it's very important, and it's just about making sure that they've got enough electricity to keep doing their mad science. That's all it's about. It's such a weird thing. But I think it also does show human nature, and especially the kind of emails that were getting sent back and forward shows that, when this situation started developing and people realised that the Institute wanted something from Jacqueline here, they came in and they all turned on each other. So it just shows how quickly that even a community that was getting along well and everything was all hunky-dory, that people, when there's something scary happening, when there's something, when they're faced with danger, that these communities can tear themselves apart so quickly. Seeing that Jacqueline got sent all these really nasty emails, she was getting accused of all sorts of things, working for the Institute, being a synth, and that they were on the verge of a mob forming, really, to run this girl and her father out of town, because they had brought down the danger of the Institute on the town and things. And it's really, it's really quite harsh, because okay, yeah, she did cause it inadvertently, but she was just like, oh, I've discovered something that somebody might want. It might be a way to make a little bit of money, because at the end of the day, that's what people are having to do. They have to find ways of making a living in this world, and scavenging and selling, tech and data and things is a way to do that. So she didn't really do anything wrong. It was the way the Institute kind of handled it that was wrong. That they, instead of being reasonable and saying, okay, well, let's come to an agreement. If you give us this, we'll give you something, whether it's caps or whether they give her something else in exchange, negotiating with her about it. Instead of just coming in and sending a bunch of Gen 2 synths in to just slaughter everybody, they could have been more reasonable about the whole situation, and they weren't. And the blame for that is entirely on the Institute, because that's just, not necessary at all. There's absolutely no need for them to come in straight on to the attack. They could have absolutely been much nicer about it. And I think the people, sorry, that might actually be Gerald as well. Sorry about that. Oh, there we go. Nice. Oh, now he's getting in the way of me getting on the computer. But just getting this really aggressive email about what Jacqueline has done. Told you 1,000 times, no good has ever come from messing pre-war gobbledygook. I'm guessing that's supposed to be messing with. Sure, my daughter, I would have beaten some sense into her years ago. I'm almost glad Josephine isn't alive to see what a wreck your family's become. Shame on you. My boys come to harm from this. I will beat you to death myself. Martha Cole. So that is very aggressive, and it's just, again, like it's the fact that they're just blaming her for all of this situation, where she's not doing it. She's not done anything wrong. It's not something that she did with the intention of hurting people. And then, saying, it breaks my heart to say this, but you should leave town, run for it, leave the Commonwealth. Young enough to start over, and Jack as smart as can be. And he's not hearing anything good, even if the visitor's an imposter. If you're our own neighbours, we may turn on you first, Sylvia. So, so the writing's on the wall that, whether this person making demands is actually from the Institute or not, that it doesn't matter because the other people in the town are probably going to turn on them anyway. The sins got there before that could happen, but obviously it was very likely that if the sins didn't turn up when they did, then the town would basically tear itself apart over this whole situation. And it just shows what, the slightest kind of suggestion of danger or fear to a community, and people are just going to turn on the person that they have decided has to be responsible, regardless of, intentions and things like that. I mean, obviously, Jacqueline never intended for any of this to happen, but it did happen, and it was kind of her fault, but at the same time, it wasn't really her responsibility to make the decision of handling this in such an aggressive and violent way when they could have negotiated something. But the Institute don't negotiate with people, they just take what they want, and to hell with anybody that gets in their way, essentially. That really seems to be their philosophy on these things, and it's it's something that certainly rubs me the wrong way, because there's just no need for this. And then, you're going to listen to them talking about how they are going to save humanity, and that, they're the last best hope, and blah, blah, blah. And then they go and do things like this. And like I say, this isn't the only instance of this kind of thing happening with the Institute. And even just, the inciting incident of the game where you're frozen and your son gets kidnapped by the Institute because his DNA is pure. And it's like, but why did it have to be that one specific baby? There was lots of people in that vault who hadn't been exposed to radiation. It's baffling, and it's something that I really don't like the Institute, in case you haven't figured that out already. I think the whole thing about it is really weird, and as much as I'm I'm a scientific person. I studied all the sciences at school. I studied veterinary medicine, so I know a lot about a lot of different branches of science. And there's ethical ways of doing these things. It doesn't always have to be harmful, and you could definitely approach these things in a more reasonable way than what happened. Master locked door. Interesting. But yeah, you could. I'm trying to think how I want to say this, but I just think that the Institute really I just don't like the way they approach anything. And even the fact that, if you speak to Father about how he let you out, I mean, that was just an experiment. He just wanted to see what you would do. He didn't think that you were actually going to get as far as getting into the Institute. He didn't think that you were going to get that far. Kellogg didn't think you were going to get that far either. He was like, I thought you wouldn't make it to Diamond City, never mind to get to me in Fort Hagen. But it was all just like, I wonder what will happen, because it's like, just because there's no real justification behind any of it. And I just think that anybody that thinks that they're going to save humanity by coming in and wiping out an entire town for the sake of some data on nuclear reactor efficiency, they can't really claim to be the good guys in any real capacity. And I hope you'll all agree with me there, but I would definitely be interested to see your thoughts on that. What do you think about the situation here? How much is Jacqueline really to blame, and how much blame should actually be placed at the Institute's feet instead? What do you think about the Institute in general and how they approach things? I would definitely love to hear your thoughts, because I think it's a very interesting topic. But that was the story of Jacqueline Spencer and the massacre at University Point in Fallout 4. So yeah, let me know what you think, and we'll be back on Thursday with more Wasteland Survival Guide. So that should be interesting. And then on Saturday, we're going to start talking about the ghouls as part of the Immortality and Fallout Science series, so hopefully you'll come back for that. If you've not already subscribed, do hit the subscribe button. I upload 3 times a week at a minimum, and there's also going to be random episodes of Oblivion Remastered in between that, just kind of as and when I have the time to record it and things and get it uploaded for you. It's going to get quite interesting once we get into some of the story stuff in Oblivion, I think, so hopefully you'll join me for that, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.